Your death won't come easily.
Hello, Shauna the Lore Hunter here, and this is Sekiro So Far, a series where I discuss everything we have learned about the upcoming action game Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. This is part 4, where I'm discussing what we've learned about the story and lore between E3 2018 and the Tokyo Game Show. As my name implies, I'm a story and lore guy. It was the environmental storytelling and fractured world building of Dark Souls that got me hooked on Fromsoft's games. So why is this part coming along so late? The simple answer is that From is always tight-lipped about the story of their games, and that a lot of the noteworthy information has been about the gameplay and mechanics versus the narrative. However, there have been enough small details, especially with regards toward the development of the story, that there's a foundation of information we can construct now and then build upon in the future as more information comes out prior to release. This video will discuss what we know about the story and world of Sekiro, within the context of what we have learned about the development of the narrative. Let's begin. The development of Sekiro began in late 2015 after the completion of the Bloodborne Old Hunters DLC. Discussing ideas for new titles, communications manager Yasuhiro Katao stated that there was a desire to make a game based upon Japan. In addition, FromSoft president and Sekiro director Hidetaka Miyazaki told Dengeki Online that, "We decided very early on that the main character would be a ninja. That was the basis upon which we built our game design." Holding the Tenchu IP, FromSoft began development of Sekiro as a new Tenchu title, but Miyazaki said that the idea was scrapped quickly. He explained that Tenchu had been developed by a very different set of people, and we felt that we wouldn't be able to make anything but an imitation of it. So while Sekiro was originally sparked by Tenchu, and borrows mechanics like the grappling hook and the ninja kill, it'll ultimately be our own new game. And so the story of Sekiro began development. Unlike the Souls games, Miyazaki explained in a Famitsu interview that, "This will be my first project with a fixed main character, but I think it's necessary to mark a fresh turn. The themes of this story are difficult without a fixed character." In a Polygon interview, Miyazaki explains that, "The shinobi creates the axes for the main core of the story. The characters, they revolve around him as well. This allows us to frame the story and settings in a much simpler light than previously, so it's going to be initially easier to understand and easier to relate to." Miyazaki adds to this idea, stating, "There's still going to be this kind of fragmented element to it. You're still going to have to explore it to find out all the clues in depth for yourself. We feel like it's not going to change too much in that sense. Our approach to storytelling has not changed." In another first, Miyazaki stated in Famitsu that, "I came up with the foundational ideas, and worked with another staff member to refine them. While I'm looking over their work closely, I've left most of the actual writing to that developer. While this is the first time I've directed the plot but not done the writing, I think it'll be a good and fresh perspective for this work, especially given the idiosyncrasies of my writing style." In a Polygon interview, Miyazaki stated that in part because he's not writing Sekiro, and partly because From doesn't want to be held to recurring references and memes, the character Patches, who's been featured in some form in every Souls game, is unlikely to be in Sekiro. I'm unsure what that means for the Moonlight Greatsword, which has been with From longer than Miyazaki, but the odds of seeing it in another FromSoft game and other FromSoft references are diminished by this news. This last detail isn't strictly related to the development, but is some clarification on the function of the eavesdrop button, which is down on the D-pad. In Polygon, Miyazaki said, "While you're undetected, you can eavesdrop on enemies to get hints about other enemy weaknesses, strategic hints about how to approach the map in certain situations, or learn story details as well. This is kind of a new element, and it relates nicely to the theme of the shinobi." I like this. I think it's an awesome concept. I love how this ties into the stealth mechanics and pulls the player into the role of the shinobi. Also, I'm just very happy that there is finally a button you can press for lore. Now that we've discussed the basis upon which the story of Sekiro was developed, let's discuss the story itself. The most substantial story information about Sekiro Shadows Die Twice comes from the Sekiro Japanese website, which, unlike the English site, has a section titled Story that has been translated by Suzaku in this Reddit post shown here and linked below. The first line reads, "It is a time of warring states." This line is referencing the Sengoku era, which means warring states in Japanese, and was a period of Japanese history between 1467 and 1600, in which local lords called daimyo were in nearly constant conflict with one another as they vied for power. In his interview with Famitsu, Miyazaki explained that, as we reimagined medieval fantasy and Dark Souls, we're reimagining this period with our own flights of fancy. Expanding upon this, Yasuhiro Katao said during a Variety interview that Sekiro is not a historical game. The idea is that this is a theme setter. In an interview with PlayStation Blog, Miyazaki explained the themes he wanted to explore using Sengoku-era Japan. We landed on the Sengoku period because it was dirtier, it was grittier, and bloodier. It still seems medieval. It felt more believable to see something mystical or having to do with the presence of gods in the Sengoku period. And finally, he states, Sekiro is set at the end of the Sengoku period. The reason for this is that, in my opinion, there's a nuance, a beauty in the finality of something coming to an end. That fits our artistic sense, and we wanted to express that. So Sekiro takes place in a fictionalized late Sengoku-era Japan to tell the story of a ninja enduring in a world of mysticism on the brink of collapse. I'm sold. Let's continue and learn more about this place. Far beyond the snowy peaks lies the land of Ashina. Quick aside, Ashina is the name of a real Sengoku-era clan in Japan, but it is a fictional place, far to the north as FromSoft loves to do.
Prosperity to his northern kingdom of Boletaria. Dead are corralled and led to the north. Long ago, in a walled-off land far to the north. In venturing north?
Let's continue. The Sword Saint, Ashina Asin, had conquered the northern provinces and founded the nation less than a generation ago. We get some tantalizing background here. Ashina Asin is a legendary swordsman, fictional by the way, who conquered the northern provinces and named them after himself. We don't get information about the conquering of the northern provinces, I assume it was bloody, or what the northern provinces were like prior to being Ashina, but we do know from another section of the Japanese site that there was an ancient clan that dwelled in Ashina. I assume this ancient clan existed before the nation of Ashina, founded less than a generation ago. At the time where the story of Sekiro starts, there is only one surviving member of the clan. There is no explicit connection between the founding of Ashina and the downfall of this clan, but for reasons we will get to shortly, it certainly seems possible that this was the case. The first section of the story ends with this setup detail. However, Ashina's survival has now fallen into peril. This is the catalyst for the following events that form the setup for Sekiro. Let's continue. Dismayed by their plight, Asin's grandson, the commander of Ashina, secretly relays a message to his troops. There are no longer any conventional means through which we can protect Ashina from its invaders. Now is the time. We need the prince. There is an invading force that threatens Ashina. Who or what this invading force is unknown, but the Ashina cannot deal with it using their military power. The invading force overwhelming them could be a human threat like an enemy clan, but perhaps the threat is more supernatural or mystical than that, hence the need for unconventional means to combat it. In the Waypoint Radio podcast, Austin Walker and Patrick Klepek mentioned that they were told there is some kind of rot happening. There isn't more information provided on this point, but in his Dengeki interview, Miyazaki explained that, with regards to Japanese beauty, we considered its two faces, one of decay and one of vividness, in that we chose the end of the Warring States period in order to incorporate the nuance of decay. How does the prince fit into combating this invading force? In the E3 trailer, the sculptor, who we will talk about soon, says,
They'll soon make use of his bloodline.
In the Waypoint Radio podcast, they explain that they were told the prince has been captured by a cult that wants to sacrifice his eyes, but they were unsure about this last point. A cult has been mentioned a few times by articles and impressions. primarily that the old woman seen in the demo is part of this cult. So it seems likely that the Ashina commander is working secretly with a cult to repel an invading force, and that they intend to sacrifice the prince because of something special about his lineage. Let's move on to the next section and learn more about the prince. And so, the prince was captured, though a prince in name only. In truth, he is alone in the world, with neither clan nor vassals to call his own, save for a single shinobi. We learn in another section of the Japanese site that the prince was raised as a ward of the Ashina's chief vassal, Hirata. It is this point that makes me believe that the downfall of the prince's clan was at the hand of the Ashina. Presumably, the prince is a boy of about 10, meaning that there was at least one other member of his clan less than a generation ago, which this story section explicitly states as the time frame in which Ashina was founded. This could simply be a result of bloodshed or coincidence, but I feel like coincidence is cancelled when the sole surviving member of this ancient clan is being held as a ward by the chief vassal of the conquering force in the region. Why he is being held as a ward, whether it be political or because of his special heritage, is unknown, but I would not be surprised to learn that the Ashina commander was keeping him alive so that he could one day make use of his bloodline. Now let's talk about this single shinobi and the prince's capture. This shinobi is Sekiro, but before his title as the One-Armed Wolf. On the Japanese website, he is described as cold and reticent, and possessing the brutality necessary to complete his mission by any means necessary. In the TGS trailer, this unknown character says, "Ashina, fukuro no segare yo." In this thread on Reddit, the author discusses how the meaning of the Japanese word for son in this context carries a tone of condescension, and that brat or spawn may convey the nuance of the Japanese better. What this exchange demonstrates in either case is that, unlike the Chosen Undead or Ashen One, the shinobi has a history with Ashina and its people. I personally will be interested to see how they flesh out the main character. In the E3 trailer, the shinobi loses his arm and the prince to the Ashina commander. Miyazaki described the event in Famitsu. The prince the shinobi was bound to serve was kidnapped, his arm cut off, and he killed. However, the shinobi does not stay dead, but instead revives and becomes Sekiro, meaning one-armed wolf, a phrase which also carries the connotation of being one half of a pair, as the shinobi is with his master. The prince's dialogue in the TGS trailer presents the possibility that the prince's blood is special and what brings the shinobi back to life. He says, "たとえひとたび破れるとも、命を落とし、主を必ず取り戻す。それが我が忍びなれば。狼よ、我が血と共に生きてくれ." However, in the Famitsu interview, Miyazaki explained that a one-armed sculptor of Buddhist imagery found him, revived him, and gave him a prosthetic shinobi arm. I'm not sure how to square these two facts, but that might be intentional. After Miyazaki described how the shinobi lost the prince and his arm, he went on to say, the main character's motives become retrieving his master, taking revenge against the man who cut off his arm, and understanding the mystery of revival. So who is this enigmatic sculptor? The Japanese site describes him as an aging man with no left arm. Taciturn and discourteous, he is a hermit who secludes himself in a desolate mountain temple, furiously carving countless statues of the Buddha. He gathers up the shinobi after he is defeated by the commander of the Ashina, then offers him his assistance. Also, he's really hairy. In his interview with Dengeki, Miyazaki described him as a crestfallen maiden in black. The sculptor does the shinobi a real solid. It seems that he has a role to play in the shinobi's revival and subsequent recovery, and also outfits him with his shinobi prosthetic. So he's a cranky but ultimately nice guy, right? Not so fast. In his in-depth Gamescom demo video, VodiVidya explains that the sculptor's idle checkpoints have a kanji that translate roughly to Demon Buddha. In the TGS trailer, there is a line from an unknown character who says, in Buddhism, Ashura is a three-faced, six-armed demon consumed by war and violence, a physical description that sounds not unlike the Buddha statues the sculptor carves. So, there's certainly the possibility that the sculptor and his assistance to the shinobi is connected with demons. This would help to explain why the shinobi prosthetic, provided by the sculptor, runs on white spirit emblems that contain the souls of the dead. To round out the story section of the Japanese website, the last line states, "Thus begins a tale of isolation and fealty between lord and retainer." In Famitsu, Miyazaki says, "This story begins with the ideas of rescue and revenge." So what lengths will the shinobi go to rescue the prince? The official Twitter account for Sekiro posted this photo, captioned with, "To the shinobi, the code itself provides the principle for all action." Basically, he will go to any length to save his master, lengths that may involve making deals with demons. In the TGS trailer, the shinobi accepts Fushigiri, or the Mortal Blade. Another interpretation of the name is the Undead Slayer, which may hint that it functions to kill otherwise immortal enemies. This could indicate that the Ashina commander and the cult he is associated with are also able to revive, possibly using the prince's blood, and the Fushigiri is the only way to permanently kill them. But who does the shinobi get Fushigiri from, and what is the cost for wielding such a blade? There are no answers provided, and I won't speculate, so I'm just going to put this word up on the screen for no reason. And that is the story of Sekiro So Far. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe and ding a bell and whatever other arcane stuff YouTube wants you to do to get notified when the next video is out. Thanks for watching.